Do babies really need sleep training? It's one of the biggest debates in modern parenting. Some parents say sleep training completely transformed their family's sleep. Others choose not to do it at all. Recently, one of my friends started the Ferber method with her baby, and it got me thinking, do babies actually need sleep training? And what does the research say? To be honest, sleep training wasn't something I'd spent much time thinking about before. My own baby has always been a much better night sleeper than day napper. Daytime naps can be a bit unpredictable, but at night she usually sleeps for around 10 hours, sometimes waking once in the early morning for a feed. When she was younger, I often rocked or held her to sleep, but somewhere along the way I got a bit lazy and started putting her down awake more often. To my surprise, she usually just settled herself to sleep. So when my friend told me she was starting sleep training, I realized I didn't actually know much about it. That sent me down a research rabbit hole, and in this video I'm sharing what I learned. We'll look at what sleep training actually is, what the research says, the most common methods, and whether babies really need it. Let's get into it. So, what is sleep training? One thing that surprised me when I started researching this topic is that sleep training isn't really about teaching babies how to sleep. Babies already know how to sleep. The goal of sleep training is usually to help babies learn to fall asleep independently, and in some cases, settle themselves back to sleep when they naturally wake during the night. Many babies develop sleep associations. For example, they may fall asleep while feeding, being rocked, cuddled, carried, or held. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these things. In fact, many parents enjoy them. However, some babies become used to a particular way of falling asleep. When they wake between sleep cycles, they may want the same conditions again before they can return to sleep. Sleep training aims to gradually reduce that dependence and encourage more independent sleep habits. For example, my daughter used to fall asleep while being rocked or held quite often. These days, she's usually happy being put down awake, although sometimes she'll spend a few minutes rolling around or chewing on something before she drifts off. That experience made me realize that babies can develop very different sleep habits, even when parents aren't deliberately trying to teach them. It's also important to understand that sleep training doesn't automatically mean leaving a baby to cry alone. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. As we'll see shortly, there are many different approaches, ranging from very structured methods to much gentler ones. Now let's get to the question that inspired this video. Do babies actually need sleep training? The short answer is no, not necessarily. Research doesn't suggest that every baby needs to be sleep trained. Many babies gradually develop longer stretches of sleep as they grow older, and some families never use formal sleep training methods at all. However, research does show that sleep training can be helpful for some families. Studies have found that certain sleep training approaches can improve sleep for both babies and parents, particularly in the short term. Parents often report fewer night wakings, better sleep quality, and lower stress levels. That's one reason why many healthcare professionals consider sleep training a reasonable option when families are struggling with sleep. Another question parents often ask is whether sleep training causes long-term harm. From what I found, research on healthy babies has generally not found evidence of long-term negative effects on attachment, emotional development, behavior, or the parent-child relationship when age-appropriate sleep training methods are used. That said, research doesn't tell us what every family should do. Parenting decisions are influenced by personal values, family circumstances, cultural beliefs, and what feels right for a particular child. So the research suggests that sleep training can be a useful tool, but not a requirement. Which leads to another important question. What exactly are the different methods people are talking about? The method most people think of when they hear the words sleep training is cry it out, sometimes called the extinction method. In its traditional form, parents put their baby down awake and allow them to fall asleep independently without returning to the room. The idea is that the baby eventually learns to self-soothe and fall asleep without external help. Supporters often say it can work relatively quickly. Critics argue that it can be emotionally difficult for both parents and babies because it may involve prolonged crying. Because of this, it's probably the most controversial sleep training method. The Ferber method is often described as a more gradual approach. Instead of leaving the baby alone for the entire time, parents check in at increasing intervals. For example, they might return after a few minutes, then wait slightly longer before the next check-in. The goal is to reassure the baby that a parent is still present while gradually encouraging independent sleep. Many parents see this as a middle ground between cry it out and gentler approaches. One reason this topic caught my attention is that a friend of mine actually started the Ferber method this week. She told me that the first night involved around 30 minutes of crying at bedtime, which was less than she expected. There were still some wake-ups later in the night, but her baby managed to self-soothe back to sleep on a couple of occasions. She also mentioned that many parents report nights 2 and 3 can sometimes be more challenging before things start improving. The chair method involves staying in the room while the baby falls asleep. Parents typically sit beside the cot and gradually move further away over a period of days or weeks. The idea is that the baby learns to fall asleep independently while still having the reassurance of a parent's presence nearby. This approach is often considered gentler, although it may require more patience and consistency. This isn't one specific method, but rather a group of approaches that focus on gradual change. Parents may slowly reduce rocking, feeding, or other sleep associations while continuing to respond closely to their baby's needs. These methods generally involve less crying, but may take longer to produce results. For some families, that trade-off feels worthwhile. For others, a more structured approach feels more manageable. And that's really the biggest thing I learned while researching this topic. Sleep training isn't one thing. It's a whole spectrum of approaches. Before researching this topic, I think I assume most parents who sleep train are simply trying to get their baby to sleep through the night as quickly as possible. But after reading more about it and hearing from other parents, I realized the reasons are usually much more complex. The biggest reason is often sleep deprivation. If you've ever looked after a baby who's waking every hour or two throughout the night, you'll know how exhausting that can be. Lack of sleep affects mood, concentration, relationships, and overall well-being. For some parents, sleep training isn't about convenience, it's about survival. Even though my baby sleeps quite well at night, I've still experienced periods where naps were short, unpredictable, or happened at awkward times. And that's with a baby who's generally considered a good sleeper. So I can only imagine how difficult it must be when you're dealing with multiple night wakings, every night for months. Other parents are preparing to return to work, managing mental health challenges, caring for multiple children, or simply trying to function safely and effectively during the day. When viewed from that perspective, it's easier to understand why many families decide to explore sleep training. After researching sleep training, what surprised me most was how much nuance there is. Before looking into it, I think I saw sleep training as a simple choice. Either you do it or you don't. But the reality is much more complicated. There isn't one sleep training method. There are many different approaches ranging from highly structured methods to very gentle ones. There also isn't one outcome. What works well for one baby may not work for another. Researching sleep training has actually made me appreciate how fortunate I've been with night sleep so far. My challenges have been much more around daytime naps than overnight sleep. At the same time, hearing my friends' experience and reading about other families helped me understand why sleep training becomes such an important topic for many parents. What I keep coming back to is this: not all babies need sleep training. Not all families want sleep training. And that's okay. Sleep training is a tool, not a requirement. The best approach is the one that works for your baby, your family, and your circumstances. I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments. Have you tried sleep training? Are you considering it? Or did your baby eventually figure things out without it? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to Night Owl Mum Life for more honest conversations about parenting, motherhood, and figuring things out as we go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.